The revelations of union corruption have given the Abbott government ammunition to argue both the case for more union oversight and for an inquiry into corruption. To discuss that and his economic priorities for the year ahead, I was joined a short time ago by the Treasurer, Joe Hockey. Treasurer, thanks for coming in.
And Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. Do you think that a Royal Commission into union corruption is warranted?
Well, certainly we promised before the election to have a judicial review, but there is mounting evidence now that there are systemic problems in the union movement that need to be fully exposed and addressed.
Should any inquiry, whichever form it takes, also cover employer groups?
Well, there's no suggestion of corruption by employer groups. The unions are there to serve their members. And when you hear reports, as revealed here on 7:30, of union officials doing deals with bikie gangs at the expense of their own members, and when you see the reports in the media of the HSU and officials that have been using union members' money, allegedly for inappropriate activity, someone has to stand up for the workers, and we're prepared to do that.
But employer groups also operate based on members' money. They are registered under the same legislation as unions are. So why should unions be singled out for investigation? Shouldn't any organisations that take members' money and are meant to operate on their behalf be investigated for corruption if we're going to have this sort of broad Royal Commission-style inquiry?
Well, I think if you applied that test, you'd have everything from the Melbourne Cricket Ground Trust and Sydney Cricket Ground Trust right through to Rotary organisations. That's inappropriate. There are no suggestions of other representative groups engaging in this, what appears to be systemic corruption.
But there are. The Tasmanian Chamber of Commerce and Industry was investigated in 2012 for hundreds of thousands of dollars in missing funds. Surely any organisation that takes money from members is susceptible to these sorts of misuses of money.
Well, that may be right, and that may be one of the outcomes for an inquiry, but let's see where it goes to.
You point out that it is across a range of unions, but is it unfair to tarnish the entire union movement? Because, of course, there are lots of people who work for unions who do sincerely try to do the best they can for workers.
And I think good union representatives and the good unions would be appalled at the revelations that now seem to be flowing out from a range of different sources. This isn't coming out of the government. It's coming out of your program. It's coming out of a range, court appearances involving the HSU. It's appearing out of investigations in the AWU. So it is a number of union officials who are the whistleblowers here, and they need to have a forum where they can be heard.
Business, as we know, has been clamouring for IR reform. The Abbott government had an election promise that you wouldn't announce anything major in that area without taking it back to the voters, and that you would have a Productivity Commission inquiry during this first term to have a look at that area. You're nearly 6 months into government and you haven't moved on that at all. Why is it such a low priority?
Well, it's not a low priority. I think we've got other priorities. Labor left us with $123 billion of deficits, a debt rising to $667 billion. We pledged that we would fix the mess that was left behind in relation to the budget. We pledged that we would stop the boats, and we are stopping the boats. We've had a very full dance card so far.
But as I say, business is clamouring for you to have a look at this. You've been in government for 6 months. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You haven't even set the terms of reference for this inquiry.
We will get around to it, but step by step we are going through things in a calm and methodical manner.
And when will you
I don't think there's any shortage of inquiries underway at the moment. I think we can focus.
Presumably want to be government by inquiry.
No, we want government by outcomes, and that's what we're going to do.
So when will you be starting this productivity
in due course?
Review?
Let's just see. We've only just started, Lee. We're not. I want to emphasise
we are. You're 6 months in, actually. That's not just only starting.
We hope to be around a long time, and therefore you take things in a methodical manner.
You were due to receive the Commission of Audit report by the end of January. Do you have it yet?
No.
And do you know when it's coming?
Well, we extended the period of time for the Commission to report. Their interim report comes around the middle of February. It was meant to be a little bit earlier, but the Greens and the Labor Party decided to set an inquiry, which of course took up an enormous amount of resources of the Commission and delayed their worth.
In a speech to the Institute of Public Affairs last year, you said that part of the foundation for the audit is the philosophy that governments should do for people what they can't do for themselves and no more. Is it fair to say that that's also the guiding principle for your first budget?
Well, we need to live within our means as a nation. It is now time for us to accept intergenerational responsibility and fix the budget mess that was left behind by the previous government.
But I just want to talk about...
Let me finish. It is no easy task dealing with $123 billion of deficits with a legacy of rising unemployment, slower economic growth and deteriorating terms of trade. Now, it's been a long time since a new government has come in and inherited economic indices that are heading in the wrong direction. We've got to turn the economy around and we've got to turn the budget around.
And I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what is the philosophy that is going to drive your approach to that. In that same speech, you said that there's going to have to be a rethink of the way people view the role of government, and it would have to involve a winding back of universal access to payments and entitlements from the state and a reinvigoration of a culture of self-reliance. Is that what's driving you as you try to frame your first budget?
Yes, we must. We must. This is not an ideological jihad, if you like. It is, in fact, what we have to do to get Australia back on track. We want growth and jobs. And the only way to get growth and jobs is to have a government's budget that is sustainable. So there's no left field taxes, there's no right field regulation that tries to control people's behaviour. We need Australians to take control of their destiny, and it starts with a budget.
But are you going to have the courage to actually back, these sorts of views up with action? Because at the moment, every time it seems that something a bit painful is floated, like say a $6 co-payment if you go to a bulk billing doctor, it gets floated, there's a bit of a stink, and then the government immediately rules it out.
Well, no, we're not ruling things in or out. We are dealing with all of the suggestions that have been put forward on a methodical basis. I want to emphasise, this is not a choice for government. It has to be done. We need to live within our means. We can't keep hitting taxpayers. We can't keep hitting families. We can't keep hitting employers, employees with new taxes to pay for the largesse that Labor left. We can't do that. We've got to live within our means.
You say you're not ruling things in or out, but Julie Bishop today appeared to rule out that $6 co-payment. Are you saying that that still is a viable option?
Well, that is a matter for the Commission of Audit. Let's receive the report from the Commission of Audit. We will carefully consider it. We will release it for public review. It will feed into our budget in May.
Cabinet's meeting tomorrow, and there are reports that it's going to be considering a rescue package for the struggling company SPC Ardmona. You have said that you want companies to understand that the government isn't going to be there to bail you out, when you reap the consequences of various business decisions. Where do you stand on this SPC Ardmona rescue package possibility?
Well, I'll advise my colleagues tomorrow of my position, as I've done in the past. But if we're asking the Australian people to help the government to live within its means, then corporate Australia must also follow. And the parent company of SPC Ardmona, Coca-Cola Amatil, which is an Australian company, in the first 6 months of this year had a profit of over $215 million for 6 months. And yet there is a request for $50 million of taxpayers' money. I think you can understand why we are being very cautious, very careful about handing out taxpayers' money to companies that are profitable, let alone companies that aren't profitable.
Well, I won't be around in May at budget time when you're giving birth to your baby, because I'll be looking after mine, so I'm sorry about that.
Well, let's hope we both have great birthing experiences.
I want mine to be less painful than yours.
Well, we're both not interested in pain, we're interested in positive outcomes, and I wish you all the very best.
Treasurer Joe Hockey, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Lee.